Hi, I'm Dan and welcome to Polar Currency and video number 14. This video is kind of a bonus. It's not a Friday video. This past weekend, I was lucky enough to be able to fly out to the Long Beach Expo Collectibles show with my wife. Yes, my wife went with me. She is the greatest of all time. I'm pretty sure the only reason that she came with me was because it was in California, because we're in the Arctic tundra of Minnesota, but we make the best of our winters, trust me on that. It also happens that we received a very nice invitation to stay with friends that I actually met because of Polar Currency. Developing friendships was something I never saw happening about becoming a YouTuber. But when I started Polar Currency almost 6 months ago, I thought I would just make some videos, put them out there, and answer a few comments from anyone who cared to watch. I just expected there would be a certain electronic distance pushing videos out on the internet via the YouTube machine. Well, I was wrong, not the first time, and you'll see why later. But we had a great experience at the Long Beach Expo. We were there early when the doors opened at 10 a.m. The lines were already long, and we didn't have to just stand in one line, but two. It was opening day, so I can understand. I hadn't been to a large show for over 20 years. The last one was probably the Central States back in 2000-something. Well, children, time, work, and money rank ahead of my collecting. Add to the fact, with travel costs, etc., that really drives up the cost of purchasing a banknote. And to be honest, I've never been a national show guy because for the most part, they're coin shows that just happen to have currency. Things have changed a bit, and the Long Beach Expo certainly had more than a few booths carrying banknotes. So I had some hope. I had my list, and we did a walkthrough checking out the exhibitors and see what they had. After an hour, I made my first purchase. I've been looking for an affordable Series 1902 $20 national banknote from Minnesota for quite some time, and Kagan's had a nice one from the American National Banknote of St. Paul. Literally, after finishing up the purchase, I get a tap on my shoulder. I turn around and immediately knew it was Dr. G. Don't know how because he doesn't show his face on his channel. I just knew. We laughed, talked, and I finally introduced my wife after about 10 minutes. Sorry about that, honey, but I was having a bromance moment with Dr. G. I mean, it was Dr. G. Fellow YouTuber sidebar here. It gets even better. Dr. G said Silver Surfer lived in the area but couldn't make the show, but could we meet on Saturday? Of course, I said, hell yeah. We met for lunch and had a great conversation, and Silver Surfer brought his latest purchase. Yeah, it was a coin, but what a coin it is. Stay tuned for a future video from him on that. Silver Surfer also brought part of his currency collection and shared an album. I was in heaven. A really, really nice collection. Thanks, Dr. G and Silver Surfer, for taking the time out of your busy schedule to meet with some guy from Minnesota. It was just so cool to make new friends and talk numismatics. And if you haven't checked out their channels, you need to. End of sidebar. My wife and I moved on, and we eventually found a nice Series 1891 $1 treasury note from Hughes Brothers Numismatics. They're out of Pennsylvania, and they had a great selection of affordable banknotes. My estimate that the note is about a choice fine 15, and it's my second treasury note to go along with my 1891 $2. We kept walking along and then came across some very interesting notes, a few that I wanted to buy, but sadly, most of the exhibitors only take cash, and I'm not going to carry around that much cash. It was a bit frustrating that not many exhibitors take cards, especially today. It's really not that difficult or expensive to set Venmo or Square up to take payment. I'd even pay the additional percentage, but I digress. Joe from the Coin Box, another friendship I've been lucky enough to develop, has gotten me interested in old large Mexican banknotes. Thanks for that, Joe. But they really are beautiful, have some great history behind them, and are affordable, some very affordable. I picked up this 1915 $10 peso from the state of Chihuahua, and it's basically uncirculated. That was it for the show, but I did have one more thing to do before leaving. I did have the chance to meet Ben the Coin Geek. For a coin guy, he's not too bad. He does some currency every once in a while. Seriously though, Ben was very gracious listening to me drone on about something. Obviously, you can see by the look on his face, it was very important. I'm sure he spends a lot of time talking to knuckleheads like me, but it is appreciated, Ben. Thank you for taking the time, and thank you for doing your YouTube channel. I've learned a lot from you, even if it is about coins. The friends we were staying with knew Peter Treglia, director of currency for Stacks and Bowers, and set up a time for us to meet. Peter was generous enough to give me an hour of his time to sit down and talk. He has a fascinating background and an encyclopedia of currency knowledge. We had a great conversation, or at least I did, about the state of currency and the wide breadth of collecting. He was also gracious enough to agree to a formal interview at a later date. Stay tuned for that video. After the interview, we took one more trip around the floor and then we were ready to leave. But I couldn't leave Long Beach without visiting the Queen Mary. Another one of my eclectic interests is old ocean liners. I've been fascinated by them since I was in elementary school when I first learned the tragic story of the Titanic. The Queen Mary is the only ocean liner that still exists and is available to tour. There are very few others out there, and sadly, almost all of them have been scrapped, or they sit becoming rusting hulks, as in the case of the SS United States in Philadelphia. A very sad story. But visiting the Queen Mary was a great way to end our visit to Long Beach. Before we left Southern California, sorry I just can't call it SoCal, I did ask Silver Surfer to give up one of his favorite local coin shops. He did, and we took a drive down to San Diego Coin and Bullion. We were met by the co-owner of the shop, Jeff, and we had a great experience, and sure enough, he had a note that was in my price range that had been on my bucket list for quite some time. And that was the Series 1869 $2 legal tender rainbow note. I have the Series 1917, but I've always wanted a rainbow, but they're very tough to find at a price where you can actually still see the rainbow. And here it was. As it turns out, Jeff's wife is also from a small town in Minnesota, so I had to buy something. It's a great shop and has a good selection of currency. For a coin shop, you know I can't leave that alone. These last notes I was given to by my friend we were staying with. He had some duplicates and knew I had some interest in World Bank notes. And for a shameless plug, if you haven't watched my World Bank note videos, you're missing out because foreign notes are just stunning. The two notes were from the 1950s pre-Castro era. They're just stunning with the design, color, denominations, and they tell a really great story that will be in an upcoming video. Before I go, I do have to thank Ontario 100 for the shout out for Polar Currency. Thanks, Ontario, for your support. It is greatly appreciated and means a lot coming from you. Ontario does a wonderful job of explaining the coins or banknotes that he shares. I really appreciate the history that he provides that's beyond simply the grade or denomination. Sincere thanks, Ontario, and your channel is definitely one of my favorites, and if you haven't seen it, you need to check it out. So that's it for our visit to Southern California and the Long Beach Expo. I have to say thanks to our gracious hosts for opening up their beautiful home, and also to Dr. G and Silver Surfer for taking the time to meet, and the person who made it all happen, thanks to my wife. While we were out there, we celebrated our 35th wedding anniversary, and she was kind enough to let me indulge in my weird numismatic hobby of currency collecting. She's one of a kind, and I am so blessed that she said yes. As always, I appreciate your time, and if you like what you see, please hit the thumbs up button, feel free to leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. We'll see you for video number 15, and thanks for checking in.